If there were awards for expensive mistakes, St. Louis's dome would win the Super Bowl of bad investments. Over $500 million spent, and yet the NFL left town quicker than you can say, waste of money. But how on earth did this promising stadium become America's ultimate cautionary tale? In 1995, St. Louis thought they'd scored a touchdown, finally getting an NFL team after years of chasing football glory. They built the dome at America Center, boasting state-of-the-art facilities designed to blend seamlessly with the city's historic charm. Brick and limestone facades promised class, but inside, trouble was already brewing. The Rams lease had one tiny catch. The stadium had to remain among the NFL's top 25%, or they'd bail, penalty-free. Sounds simple enough, right? Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Within just a decade, the dome went from promising landmark to embarrassing liability. Fans complained about everything: bad sightlines, lackluster tailgating, and an atmosphere as exciting as a dentist's waiting room. In fact, by 2008, Sports Illustrated named it the NFL's worst stadium. Yes, dead last. Even Time magazine piled on, calling it one of America's top sports disasters. But how did a shiny new stadium spiral so fast? By the late 2000s, St. Louis city officials were in full-on damage control mode. The dome, once a sparkling symbol of civic pride, was quickly becoming a very expensive embarrassment. The lease agreement from 1995 was aging like unrefrigerated milk. Under its terms, the stadium had to remain in the NFL's top 25% of venues, or the Rams could walk away penalty-free. So, what did the city do? They rolled up their sleeves, wrote a $30 million check, and hoped a few upgrades would be enough to patch the cracks. In 2009 and 2010, the dome got a makeover. New LED video scoreboards? Check. A relocated locker room and sleek HD monitors? Done. They even installed a new AstroTurf field with an underground storage system, a tech-savvy upgrade that made the turf feel more like a Transformers character than football flooring. Everything was repainted in Rams colors to give the place a fresh look. But unfortunately, you can't slap new paint on a sinking ship and expect it to sail. Rams management wasn't fooled. Despite the shiny gadgets and fresh carpet, they still viewed the dome as outdated and underwhelming. Behind the scenes, the franchise was already exploring exit strategies. Fan attendance didn't help their case either. Between 2008 and 2015, the Rams consistently ranked among the bottom 5 teams in the NFL for home game turnout. And by 2015, dead last. The energy in the stands was as flat as a Monday morning alarm clock. Meanwhile, Stan Kroenke, the Rams owner and real estate mogul with the subtlety of a wrecking ball, made a quiet but telling move. In 2014, he purchased 60 acres of land in Inglewood, California, a site once earmarked for a Walmart supercenter. But Kroenke didn't want bargains. He wanted a palace. This surprise real estate acquisition would soon morph into the ultra-luxurious SoFi Stadium, complete with 88,000 seats, a concert venue, and an entertainment district fit for royalty. St. Louis scrambled. Proposals, meetings, desperate negotiations all thrown against the wall like spaghetti, hoping something would stick, but nothing did. The writing wasn't just on the wall. It was on the scoreboard, the locker room, and the deed to that land in Inglewood. The Rams were already halfway out the door. After years of patchwork fixes and fan frustration, the city of St. Louis tried to go big, or at least bigger. In 2012, they pitched a $124 million plan to upgrade the dome again. This version featured a fancy 3-story glass entrance, updated suites, more club seating, and even a 947-space parking garage. Because what screams cutting-edge football experience like better parking? Under the deal, the Rams would contribute $64 million, and the city would cover the rest, including the cost of public infrastructure. On paper, it looked reasonable. A good faith effort, a last-ditch attempt to keep the team rooted in St. Louis. But the Rams, not impressed. They rejected the plan faster than a coach throwing a red flag. Their counterproposal was jaw-dropping. a $700 million near-complete rebuild of the stadium, featuring a retractable sliding roof, an enormous four-sided scoreboard, and massive structural changes that would essentially turn the dome into a brand new building. It was the architectural equivalent of saying, "Yeah, your Honda's nice, but we'd rather have a Ferrari." The problem? Nobody had $700 million lying around. There was no real plan to finance it. No private investors waiting in the wings, no public bonds on the table, just a giant idea with a giant price tag. The whole situation was like trying to buy a mansion with monopoly money. So the two sides went to arbitration. In 2013, the arbitrators sided with the Rams. They ruled that the only way to meet the original lease's first-tier requirement was to approve the Rams' $700 million proposal, meaning, by legal definition, the dome had officially failed the test. At that point, the Rams had every right to go year to year on the lease, or just leave altogether. And guess what? They were already planning the exit. Meanwhile, back in California, Kroenke's mysterious 60-acre land purchase in Inglewood was beginning to make sense. By early 2015, the public plan for SoFi Stadium was unveiled. 88,000 seats, a 6,000-seat performance venue, luxury everything, and a commercial empire attached. While St. Louis was still trying to get a few new elevators installed, Kroenke was building football's version of the Death Star. For St. Louis, it was no longer a game. It was checkmate, and the clock had just run out. On January 4th, 2016, the blow finally landed. The Rams announced they were leaving St. Louis, filing for relocation back to Los Angeles.
This is the great history of the Los Angeles Rams.
For the fans, it was like being dumped via text after paying for dinner. After 2 decades of cheering, upgrades, tax dollars, and blind optimism, the team packed up and left. No goodbye party, no closure, just a quiet exit and a pile of broken civic promises. Within days, Edward Jones yanked its name off the stadium like someone ripping off a wedding ring after a messy divorce. The dome, once called the Trans World Dome, then the Edward Jones Dome, was now simply the Dome at America Center again, bland, forgotten, and aging not so gracefully. It went from primetime NFL venue to a public relations zombie in a matter of weeks. But St. Louis wasn't just licking its wounds, it was loading its legal cannons. In 2017, city, county, and regional leaders filed a lawsuit against Stan Kroenke and the NFL, accusing them of deception, breach of relocation rules, and manipulating the relocation process behind closed doors. They weren't just mad, they wanted revenge money, over $1 billion worth. The lawsuit dug deep. It exposed internal league communications, backdoor meetings, and a whole playbook of "let's move to LA" moments. The NFL tried to dodge it, hard. They asked courts to dismiss the case, denied. Tried to move the trial out of Missouri, denied. They even attempted to shield their financial records. You guessed it, denied. For once, the city of St. Louis was on a winning streak, just not on the football field. In 2021, after 4 years of courtroom blitzes and legal fumbles, Kroenke and the NFL caved. The settlement? A staggering $790 million. No trial, no drawn-out verdict, just a massive payout to make the noise go away. The deal didn't come with an apology, of course, just cold, hard cash and a silent admission that maybe, just maybe, the whole thing wasn't handled with grace. But money couldn't fix everything. The dome was still empty. The Rams were thriving in their luxury LA palace. And St. Louis? Still haunted by echoes of what could have been. The city got a check, sure, but what it really wanted was closure, or maybe just one more touchdown. Just when it looked like the dome's only future was as a dusty convention hall or the world's saddest indoor track, football made a surprise comeback. In 2020, the XFL, yes, that XFL, brought the Battlehawks to St. Louis. The name may have sounded like a rejected superhero team, but the fans didn't care. They were hungry, not just for football, but for redemption. And boy, did they show up. Nearly 30,000 fans packed the Dome for the Battlehawks' first home game, turning what could have been a gimmicky sideshow into a full-blown movement. The energy? Electric? The noise? Deafening? The hot dogs? Overpriced? But that's tradition. It wasn't the NFL, but for St. Louis it was something. It was proof that the passion had never left, just the franchise. By 2023, the Battlehawks weren't just a novelty, they were setting records. Their home opener drew a jaw-dropping 38,300 fans, shattering the XFL's attendance record and silencing anyone who thought the city was done with football. Suddenly, the Dome had life again. People started whispering, could St. Louis get another shot at the NFL someday? But behind the cheers, reality was still lurking. The stadium was, for lack of a better term, old. The sightlines were awkward, the seating felt like a leftover puzzle from the 90s, and no amount of cheering could drown out the outdated sound system. In 2024, the Saint Louis Regional Sports Authority proposed a $155 million renovation to breathe new life into the venue. Think upgraded lighting, booming audio, shiny new video boards, and a layout that didn't feel like a time capsule. There was just one issue. No one wanted to pay for it. The city pointed to the county. The county pointed to the Convention Authority. The Convention Authority pointed to the sky. Meanwhile, $280 million from the NFL lawsuit settlement sat untouched, tangled in red tape and debate over how to divvy it up. Advocates pointed to San Antonio's Alamo Dome, which had used timely upgrades to land the 2018 Final Four and rake in millions. But St. Louis, still stuck in a political timeout. With no funding plan in sight, the Dome's future hung in the balance, part reborn, part relic, and entirely uncertain. Today, the Dome at America Center stands like a forgotten monument, half arena, half cautionary tale. Its walls echo with both the cheers of glory days and the silence of missed opportunities. It's not quite abandoned, but it's not fully alive either. Think of it as the stadium equivalent of a midlife crisis, still showing up to work, but wondering if anyone notices. Despite the Battlehawks bringing back some spark, the Dome's long-term identity crisis hasn't gone away. Sure, it hosts conventions, trade shows, and the occasional football game. But the question remains, what is it now? A sports venue? A convention centre with a scoreboard? A taxpayer-funded reminder of heartbreak? In 2025, there was a glimmer of optimism. Reports projected the highest number of conventions scheduled at the Dome in a decade. Finally, some good news. But it felt less like a grand revival and more like a band-aid on a broken leg. Event organisers might show up for the square footage, but nobody's coming for the ambiance. The outdated seating, awkward layout, and ageing tech still hold the Dome back from competing with modern venues. Meanwhile, discussions continue to swirl. Some argue the city should go all in, invest in the proposed $155 million renovation, and try to reinvent the Dome as a world-class event hub. Others say cut losses and sell it to a private developer. A few even suggest tearing it down completely, clearing the slate and building something fresh. But amid all these ideas, the one thing missing is action. No plan, no funding, just circular debates and political shrugging. The irony? As much as people joke about the Dome being a disaster, it's still standing, still in use, still showing flashes of potential. While flashier stadiums have already been torn down and replaced, the Dome keeps surviving, awkwardly, stubbornly, and somehow defiantly. So what's next? Will the Dome get its redemption arc? Or is it doomed to fade quietly into the background, a ghost of what could have been? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, in a city that still believes in football, in comebacks, and in second chances maybe, just maybe, the dome isn't done yet.